throughout the year. Share my screen, let me know. Okay, all good? That a yes?
Yes, all good.
Okay, sorry. I can't hear anymore, so I'm like, uh-oh.
Oh, I see your calendar, Chrissy.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Like she said, my name is Chrissy Watson. I am with the McHenry County Medical Reserve Corps. Our Reserve Corps turned 20 this year, which is pretty exciting. I have not been the coordinator for all 20 years, but I have for about the past 7 years. And I have been involved with our unit for about the last 14 years. So I've been, as a health department employee, we are all required to participate in the emergency response program activities. So I have had experience with participating in like drills, exercises, obviously actual responses as well. So that is my background, and I'll just jump right into it. So one of the most important things I've learned over the years is that you need to keep your volunteers busy. They're all here by choice. They want to give back to their communities and make a difference. And if you don't use them, you will lose them. I have learned that. It was a little hard for me at first to share because I thought this was it for them. And then I learned that they volunteered at a lot of different organizations, which is fantastic. I was a little hurt at the beginning when I learned that, but that's what they want to do. That's what makes them happy. And that's why I decided that we needed to give them more opportunities to volunteer or they would go elsewhere. So we try and offer opportunities throughout our health department. We have an animal control division and an environmental division that they help out with as well. So any chance that I hear someone say they're needing help with someone, I try and figure out how we can be a support to them. So just a couple of things on more things that I've learned is to keep them engaged is to keep that line of communication open. We do send monthly newsletters to our unit, and then we always highlight a volunteer in that newsletter. It's amazing to me how excited they get and how proud they are that I've asked them to share their experience with the MRC and share a little bit about them. We do quarterly trainings and meetings throughout the year. And then we also, if we have other trainings we can do, we will sprinkle a few more in there, but we make sure we at least do quarterly. Those are in person. It's very important for them to get to share their stories with each other. I always let them share how long they've been a volunteer and what their favorite activity has been when they volunteered. And it just helps the others then also hear about other things we do, and then possibly, sparks their interest in helping out with that program as well. Providing them as much information as possible. As hard as I strive to do this, there's always something that they have a question about. So recently we've started providing job action sheets for all the events that we ask them to help out with. It used to be just more of like the emergency response stuff, but I've learned that the more information I can provide them, the more comfortable that they are in their position. Because things do change a lot. Obviously, we all know that, especially at health departments, and it's important to keep them up to date on that as well. I also offer surveys about training topics that they would like to be involved in, so that I can give them what they need and what they're interested in. And then do a post-deployment survey, so asking them how the event went, if there's anything we could do to improve or provide them to make that experience better. Because I don't get to go to all of these events and see how they run, so I always want to hear how it's going and make sure that they're comfortable so they'll come back. I always keep that line of communication open. There are occasions when I have to go and observe a volunteer who might be struggling with some of the, actions that they have to do. That's kind of mainly with our wellness screenings. And so I try and just make sure that that they don't feel like I'm, criticizing them, and make sure that they're comfortable and ask their feedback as well. Make sure you provide, like I said, everything that they're going to need. Test the equipment prior to the assignment. We get caught up in that a lot. We do a lot of CPR training, and I can't tell you how many times we have technical issues. And then the other thing is the recognition. A lot of my volunteers are uncomfortable with recognition, but then once we do it, they're very appreciative. So I try not to go over the top, but I also want to make sure that they know how much we appreciate them. Probably not a surprise to you all, but our health department is not that big, and we would have never gotten through COVID if we didn't have our volunteers. A lot of our clinics were staffed, probably 80% with volunteers. So that's a huge number. When we were finally cutting back on clinics, the volunteers would call me because they missed it. So, okay. So I'm just going to go over a couple of the initiatives that we do here at the health department that they help out with. Clearly, they help out with free clinics. That's just once a year though, so they help out with all facets of that. It is vaccinators, registration, traffic control, anything that we have that they can help out with, they assist with our free clinics. The CPR instruction, I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a little bit. Same with the overdose prevention and response team. We have a mobile food pantry that travels throughout our county, and they assist with that as well. And that's just really distributing food to the clients that come, maybe helping them to their car if it's too heavy for them to carry. That's a great event if you guys have an opportunity to partner with your food banks. We have Northern Illinois Food Bank out here, and they do an amazing job. They just roll up the truck, and then all the volunteers know the routine, and they unload it and then help the clients with their groceries. We have a hand washing program that our communicable disease program does, and they go into classrooms and they teach the basics of hand washing. Those are mostly at our pre-K schools and kindergarten, but we learned how important that was during COVID as well and after COVID. We partnered with the Red Cross with their pillowcase program, which I've recently learned is being discontinued. However, they're going to let us do something similar to that program because we still have a lot of supplies. And that program is teaching them children how to be better prepared. And they all get a pillowcase and they get to decorate it. And then they learn about like fires, tornadoes, that kind of stuff. So we trained our volunteers in that as well. And they usually go with a staff member from the health department to help out with that program. I mentioned our wellness screenings. So we have two different wellness screenings. We have just a general wellness screening that the health department offers. And then we have partnered with the faith-based community. And we do cultivating health ministry screenings. And these screenings are for people who are uninsured, underinsured, and they can get their blood work done. It's just a simple finger prick, and it's glucose, cholesterol, and then an optional A1C screening if they'd like. These are heavily staffed by volunteers as well. And again, we use medical and non-medical volunteers for this program. This is one I sat in on last week, and it's just amazing to watch them. A lot of them are just retired nurses, and they're so excited to get to share their expertise with these clients that come in. We created a produce project a couple of years ago. So this has kind of moved slowly because we had to take a break because of COVID. But we worked with local community gardens and then farmers and farmers markets to try and get produce donated, and then we would deliver it or offer it to be picked up to food insecure families. So that one was great because we partnered with like a veteran program out here and some local churches that had refrigerators. And the volunteers would go out and collect the produce, and then they would be able to drop it off somewhere that it could be refrigerated until it was picked up. That one we're still building, and we're hoping to kind of grow that a little bit over the next few years. We also have diabetes and nutrition classes. So we have a whole body approach class, which meets weekly for 12 weeks. And we have a volunteer that co-teaches that class. And then we have volunteers that come in. We host them at food pantries, and the food bank will drop off, will deliver, used to be a pallet of food, but because how tough times are right now, we don't get quite as much. But after they go through an hour class, they get to shop produce at the food bank and take as much as they want home with them. The beautiful thing about this too is we have volunteers that help out. We have one of our food pantries in Crystal Lake. It's like a grocery store. It's beautiful. And they actually, a volunteer and a food pantry employee will cook something, a vegetable or something that they're going to get to take home that day. So they get to try it. So they get to see, like it'll be something that not normally eaten by a lot of people. We did radishes one week and they were actually pretty good. I never knew I liked radishes. So that's a neat program too, because they help with sorting, and we have to go through all the food to make sure that it's not moldy or rotten or whatever, and then set it out for them. And they get to kind of shop it like it's a grocery store. So that's a really nice one too. We have a diabetes self-management class, which is usually held in the evening, and that one is virtual and non-virtual. Another one they co-teach. We also pay for their training for any of these classes too. So if there's a grant available, I will apply for a grant to help with that. Otherwise, our health department picks up the cost because it really is saving us a staff person. And then we have another diabetes prevention program, which is just another class that they can take, but it's a shorter class. Operation Dropbox, we're going to go through a little bit more. We have recycling events with our environmental division, so they can go and help with direct traffic or unload cars. If anything that division needs, we will try and plug in a volunteer with. Those are nice because they're outside usually when in the nicer weather. They also help out at our county fair. We have medical staff that help out at the first aid tent, and then the non-medical staff will help us with our trailer. So we have a trailer there, and we have different divisions of the health department go out and table the event and share our information. And then we also help our animal control division with like rabies and microchip clinics. So that's a lot of information. Probably went through it kind of fast, but I'm going to go through a couple other, the ones that I didn't get too much into, to just kind of share with you how we help with these initiatives. So the first one is our CPR. So we've been able to train, there's about 7 volunteers now to be CPR instructors. And we had 2 trained with RISE, I think 2 with ORA, and then we also put 2 in the Strong Award that we recently received. And they train with our local hospitals, and they get certified to train the community or our staff in CPR. We also used funding from those grants to purchase equipment. So we have new equipment. We were able to get new smocks for our volunteers. So far, when our county heard that we were doing this, they opened it up to our entire county staff. So that's what we've been focusing on right now, is training all of them. So we just schedule the trainings either here at the health department or we go to their building. and they train them in CPR. And then our goal is to train the community when we're done with that. Here's just a couple pictures. The one on the left, we trained staff at our mental health board. And then the one on the right was just them being trained, 3 of our volunteers. Okay, so we also have an overdose prevention and response team. This came out of an opioid grant that our health department received. But we came to realize that we needed a team of people that could go out into the community and educate and table events, and then also distribute naloxone. So we do anything that we have a pretty robust team that's volunteers, other agencies, and then the health department. So anything that comes up in the community, if we've been unfortunately experiencing an ongoing cluster of overdoses since the beginning of the year. So we can identify what zip codes these overdoses are in, and then we send out a team to go set up a table and hand out naloxone and educate anybody who comes by. So the picture on the left is at our train station. So anybody who got off the train was able to receive naloxone and training if they were interested. The picture on the right is at our Overdose Awareness Day event on the Woodstock Square. And that's just where anybody could come and again receive free naloxone and training at that event. So we've expanded to training hospital staff. Now, clearly, the hospital staff could train themselves, but they're not allowed to give out naloxone. So they reach out to us because we have the ability to give free naloxone. Now, there's all these caveats with that. They clearly can't use it in the hospital, but that we just suggest that they carry it on their person, after work, because the hospital has naloxone that they have to use through their protocols. We have trained school personnel, because of that new law that came out. All of our schools have to carry naloxone now, so we had to go and train the school nurses and any other staff that they wanted training. And then we've had a couple schools reach out for us to come do like assemblies and talk to the kids. And that's kind of where we're headed right now. We always do volunteers for this because we just don't have the manpower. We have one person, one health educator that works on this, and she can't do it all. So surprisingly, our parochial schools are the ones that reached out first. So we were super excited to do that. We this week are doing some health classes in the junior high. So that's a great program as well. It's wonderful too because it helps normalize the people receiving naloxone. It's not just, we're not just going to give it to people that you would think need it. It's also the community, because everybody really knows somebody, unfortunately, that's battling some sort of addiction, and making it normal and okay to have this and to come in and ask for it is great. Our Operation Dropbox, this is the biggest exercise that we do right now at the health department with our volunteers, which is we run it like it's an exercise, but we have tailored it so it benefits the veterans in our community. So this is the one I'm going to kind of get a little bit more into detail about, because our volunteers are involved from day one all the way through the end of the exercise. So we actually just started meeting for this week, and what we do is we put donation boxes that are kind of like the Toys for Tots boxes. Last year we had about 30 drop sites where we would put these boxes. So clearly we need assistance with picking those up. We leave the boxes at these communities, grocery stores, anywhere that someone wants to have a box. And then our volunteers will have a point person, and they will check in with them weekly and go and pick up the donations. So some of them need donations picked up more than once a week, and some are every other week. So it just depends, but we have volunteers that will check in with these places. They will go pick up the donations, and then they will bring them to the health department. So that's a big one that we need help with. After we have collected all the donations, we have the volunteers come in and check expiration dates. So the first few years we did this, we realized that that was like a bottleneck the day of our exercise. Checking expiration dates took well over an hour, and we couldn't always get through the entire exercise. So now we do that the day before. And the one thing we also do with all these is we make them fun. Like, we want to have a good time with these volunteers. We want them to have fun because we want them to come back. So we always have a prize for who finds the oldest product. So what we do is if the product is expired within like the past 3 months, we have partnered with an agency called Work4, and they serve our homeless population, and they will take those items and make sure that they get used, because I mean, clearly 3 months past expiration date, I would use that stuff. So we try not to waste anything that we get donated. So they'll come into the health department, they'll check expiration dates, get it all boxed up, and then ready for us to deliver it to our Department of Transportation, which is where we have the exercise. So then on the day of the exercise, everybody arrives at the Department of Transportation. We do an exercise overview with them, and then proceed to do the exercise. So this year, we just kind of grow it every year, and we are looking at really giving some of the volunteers more leadership roles. So one of the biggest things that we do with this is we observe our volunteers, and we just, it helps us decide who's going to be good in a leadership role. Who does well communicating with everyone, who's not so great at accepting, the direction and wants to do things on their own, or do things the way, because when you have an actual response, you need people to do things the way that they need to be done, and follow all of the instructions. So it's a great chance for us to see how some people work well with others and that kind of stuff. So this is site setup. So we give them kind of the instructions of what they have to do, and then we let them set it up how they think it will work best. And sometimes it works great, and sometimes it doesn't, but it also helps them realize what they need to do differently or what they need to think about ahead of time. You see all these trucks. So this is at our Department of Transportation. So they have all of their equipment in this building, but this is also where our drive-through site when we do have responses. And they would clearly clean out all of their equipment, but for us, we don't need that much space. So once it's set up, they have to sort all the donations. So they tag the tables and decide how they want to sort it: paper goods, food, toiletries, that kind of stuff. So then they have to sort everything and take it all out of the donation boxes and put it on these tables. So that's what everybody is doing in this picture. So this exercise takes about 4 to 5 hours. So then once they're done sorting, we will give them pick lists, and then they have to pack the boxes. So we would give them a pick list that would simulate, say, a pick list for a long-term care facility that needs gowns and needles and whatever it is that they need. So we make them pack it as if they were having to do that in an actual response. Although we also make sure that they don't pack them too heavy. So then when they're done with their packing, we set them all on tables, and then we give them their pick list. Say it'll mock like, ABC nursing home needs this many from this table, this many from that table. And then they have to bring the pick list up, they weigh it, and then we have someone that is quality control that checks to make sure they brought the proper boxes. So they do get to practice every step of what it would be like at an exercise along the way. And then we have the delivery. So all of our donations go to Veterans Path to Hope here in the county. So delivery day is usually the next day. This year, we're really trying to stick to our schedule better so we can actually do a drive-through at the end of the exercise. So they can just see how the whole thing goes start to finish. So we actually delivered to them the next day. They had volunteers that helped out as well. And we had about almost 6,000 pounds of donations that went out. These are just some pictures from our events. The one on the left is from last year. That shows how many pounds that we had. This year we're aiming for 6,000, over 6,000. The one on the right is from a prior year. As you can see, everybody has a good time. We make sure they have fun. We had some of our volunteers that were building the boxes, made a fort with the boxes. So that was fun. It is, I mean, like we really truly have a good time with our volunteers. This is my favorite part of my job. It's the one I get the least amount of time to do, but it's the one I want to spend all my time doing, because who doesn't want to spend their day with someone who doesn't have to be here? They want to be here. And it just is a complete shift in mind, behavior, everything, because they really enjoy the time that they volunteer. A couple more. So the picture on the far right is Cheryl. She's participated in every single event. Last year was very hot, and she took it upon herself to take the water cooler and make sure everybody was hydrated. It's like there's such a team and like a family. Oh, here's a couple more. Sorry, recognition. I'll get into that. So last year, like I said, we celebrated our 20 years. It's very hard to do recognition activities, at least for our MRC, because there's no funding for it. So I pushed hard with our management about how much money our volunteers save us and how important it is to recognize them for that. So we were able to provide a dinner for the volunteers, and then someone from our Board of Health actually came and read a proclamation for the volunteers. So that was fantastic. And then our previous MRC coordinator actually came to the dinner as well. So that was really, really fun, because she knows a lot of the volunteers that have been here for a while. So then we were also recognized at our county board meeting. Picture of that. And then I try and send out just emails every now and then that just let them know how much we appreciate them. And that is it. Anybody have any questions? Dawn?
Well, you knew I was gonna ask something.
Of course.
No, great job. I don't know why I'm echoing. But anyway, great job. And I would love to have heard more about the environmental and what you all partner with some of the activities you do, because I'm looking to do one with my organization. I think it's April 4th, National Cleanup Day.
Uh-huh.
So I would love to do some paper shredding, and I can't find anyone. So we'll talk offline about that.
Okay, sure. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Great job, Chrissy.
Thank you.
So Chrissy, for the other leaders that are on the call, and the events that you conduct with your unit, do you have procedures, for the events, for each of the events and activities? And if you do, are those things that you would be willing to share with other leaders?
Yes, so we are currently still working on all of the job action sheets for all of the events. But when it comes to like the wellness screenings, they get their information and their training from our nurse that heads up that program. So it's kind of nice that I can just hand that over to her. I will send them if I have information about the screening or the testing, you know, if they need to, the equipment they need to learn, I can send that out to them ahead of time so they can, you know, read over it before they come for their training. But usually it's, if they ask me for volunteers, they'll provide me with kind of a snapshot of what they need. And then I will send them volunteers and then they will give them more details. And our volunteers too, we have some sort of liability coverage with the county, but it really doesn't cover anything for them. They all sign a consent form that they would use their own medical coverage if there were something to happen during an event. The only other thing I would say too is take advantage of the grants that are offered. Because it really is, there isn't a lot of money out there for the MRCs, and it gives you the chance to get some things, equipment, whatever that you need for your volunteers to make it easier for them to do their job. You know, there's usually not money out there for t-shirts. Yes, you can get lab coats and in the vests and whatever, but most times, you know, when we're out at the fair or doing farmers markets, they wear their t-shirt. And so the Strong Award allows us to use that for t-shirts. And it looks so much nicer when we're all uniform and the same thing, and, you know, versus a vest. Other questions?
So, hi, it's Sheila from Winnebago County. Can you hear
Hi,
me
Sheila.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just have actually I have a lot of questions for you. But I wanted to know, with regards to the overdose prevention and response team, what education are the volunteers getting? Do you have them do the one through like DHS or?
So every volunteer has to do the 100 and 700 training when they sign up. We give them like 3 months to do that. And then the training that we offer for the response team, I mean, they can kind of take as much as they want, but we at least make sure that they get the education of what an overdose looks like, how to respond to it. We don't want them to do too much because not all of them are medical, but we want them to know it's kind of like that, you know, until help arrives. This is what you need to do. But we meet with that team monthly, so we do try and provide training, education, things that they ask for help with as well. And they're usually partnered with either a health department employee or someone, say, from Live for Lolly or another harm reduction agency in the county. And they'll just go up and like we'll set up outside of a store and we'll offer Narcan. And it's kind of cool because sometimes you hear these stories of, you know, these life-saving stories, and then sometimes you'll get people that are like, oh, no, I don't know anybody. And then the more you talk to them, they're like, oh, actually, you know, so the goal of that team is just to kind of normalize having Narcan. You never know where you'll be.
Right. And then with the Operation Dropbox exercise, how long do you have the boxes out in the community
1 month.
collecting?
1 month.
1 month.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I missed, do you have like a certain time every year that you do that?
The Operation Dropbox. So we were
Correct.
doing it in November, like right before the holidays. But then the agency that we partnered with said that they get a lot of donations during that time of year. And that come June, their shelves are bare. So they asked us if we would move it to like May and June, and so that's what we did. But it's really, I mean, they get stuff, and then if they find a home for a veteran, you know, they use some of these donations to stock it for them. Really a it's really neat partnerships that we've been able to make because of these other, you know, initiatives we're working on.
And then regarding the wellness screening that they're doing, are the nurses, I'm assuming it's mostly the nurses that are helping with that. Regarding like, are they doing blood pressure screenings
Yeah.
by chance? Okay. And do you know, because you mentioned that it's your population is, you're looking at like the uninsured, underinsured. Do you know what their process is for those people that maybe don't have a provider? And if they have somebody with a high blood pressure?
Yes, we take resources with us. So we take a list of the clinics in the area that will accept people that are uninsured or underinsured. We do ask that our nurses, our volunteer nurses, do not give medical advice. They can provide medical information, but then at the Cultivating Health Ministries, we always have a doctor that volunteers his time to
Oh, good.
answer questions for people. That's this program is really amazing that they do, the Cultivating Health Ministries, and that's not necessarily a health department program. We are heavily involved with it, but it's done, it's a, you know, a faith-based program. And so they don't charge anything for their screenings. Our wellness screenings, we do charge $25. But we get a lot of seniors at ours because they only get one wellness check a year with their doctor, and then they would have to pay for it. So, you know, if their numbers were getting a little bit out of whack, they have to wait an entire year. So we see a lot of the same people in our wellness trainings. But that's kind of neat too, because it's, you know, they've just become, you know, almost like family.
Okay. Does your health department provide primary care?
No, we offer immunizations here for children. And then we have like the STI program and a TB program. But we don't, and you know, we have WIC, but we don't offer like actual well visits or anything like that.
Okay. So that's where I've come into some issues, I guess, is if we provide the screening and they don't have a doctor, like what the referral process is and a liability issue, I guess.
All right, so we have them sign a consent form when they come in that they're agreeing to follow up with the doctor. Now, whether or not they do, we don't know, but we strongly encourage.
Okay.
And we might have our nurse follow up with them too, just to see how they're doing.
Okay, good. All right. And you mentioned that you're doing your trainings and your meetings quarterly. And do you have a schedule like every year you have the same trainings?
No,
Does that
we
make
don't.
sense? Okay.
I mean,
Are the
we make them go through like the HIPAA trainings, and we offer fit testing for them, bloodborne pathogens, but then we try and bring in like stop the bleed, the CPR. Actually, Tiffany had shared some trainings with, I think it was the University of Minnesota.
yeah.
Those were great. We had volunteers that took some of those. We were gonna do
Okay.
it at our meeting, but it was more of like a slide presentation, so it didn't seem fit for me to stand and read everything to everyone. So, but anytime I get that kind of, those emails or the listserv, I'll offer it to my volunteers because that's all stuff that they can do on their own. Or at our last meeting it was last week, we talked about the MRC training. And just going through it with them and showing them how they can, take whichever courses they're interested in.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that I've had is trying to get volunteers to get on MRC train. And so, yeah, that's been an uphill battle, I guess. Great. Thank you so much, Chrissy.
Sure, my pleasure. One other thing I wanted to mention that we did with recruitment is I had one volunteer come in to a meeting and show me a letter that he had written to his friends that just said, hey, I'm part of this group, and here are some things that I do that I really enjoy. And if you want more information, here's where you can get it, or I'll invite you to our next meeting and you can come and see what it's all about. So at our last meeting, we talked about this, and we're going to draft a letter. They can either draft their own, or we're going to draft one that they can share with their friends and family, because I think that's the best way to get volunteers is word of mouth. I thought that was a great idea.
Chrissy, there's a question in the chat from Michaela. It says, what about the liability for the things that they are doing, not something happening to them?
So do you have an example?
Michaela, are you able to unmute your mic?
I'd say, like, for our wellness screenings, that's part of the consent. They agree to allow us to do the test. If that's what she's referring to with like performing the finger prick or anything. The overdose response team, the instructions on how to administer the Narcan is on the box. So we talk them through it. We taught them how to recognize it, but nothing that we do with that team is going to hurt anybody. Like the Narcan, if they're not overdosing, is not going to hurt them. So they're allowed to do that. We don't recommend like chest compressions or anything like that to our volunteers. We just tell them to wait until EMS arrives. But like at the county fair, when they work the first aid tent, they have a medical license, or we wouldn't allow them to volunteer. And they're with our local fire department. Hopefully that answers your question. Some of it falls under the Good Samaritan Act as well.
Yeah, given the Narcan falls under Good Samaritan, so.
So Chrissy, two questions that I think may benefit some of the leaders on the call. One, as you have a large unit, a unit that's very successful and integrated into a lot of projects. What can assist unit leaders in inspiring volunteers to stay with the unit and following the unit versus following the leader? So
I think it's more about getting them involved with different initiatives. So they're not always with one person. They're making relationships within the community with these other agencies. So it's not necessarily, just me providing everything for them. It's trusting also, the other people that they're volunteering with and for. And I work with our other staff too about if you want them to help you and volunteer with you, this is what you need to do for them. And you need to be open to their feedback as well. Because if I get feedback from the volunteers about how poorly something was, organized, then I'll follow up with that. Because they're not going to go back if it's, mm.
The other question I had is you had stated about having the dinner for your volunteers, which I think is absolutely fabulous, and that you were able to convince administration that how valuable your volunteers were, and that's how you were able to get funding to be able to have that dinner. How were you able to showcase that to your administration to kind of sell that to them?
So we did a breakfast after COVID. That one was easy because they saved the county, almost $500,000 when you add up all of the hours that they put in. So every month I submit a report to our Board of Health, and whether or not they push it to the county board, that says how many programs we participated in, how many volunteers, how many hours, and the dollar amount. So they can see how much money that they are saving the county. The last one with the 20-year dinner was also, how can you not recognize them for this? They've done 20 years of volunteering. This program has been here, and I'm kind of relentless when it comes to that. So, and I try and do it as cost effective as possible. Probably the biggest thing that I spent money on was those awesome cookies that had the logo on them. But I just keep at them with how important it is and how we couldn't run some of the programs we do without them. We couldn't. And it also helps that a couple of my volunteers are on the board. So they add their 2 cents as well. And then they see how hard volunteers and, the health department work. So I think that they just are in full support of it. But it's hard. It is. Also, thank you for your time. Hope it helped someone with some ideas.
Does anybody else have any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you, Christy, so much for sharing the wonderful things that your unit does, integrating them into multiple programs within your department. I think this will help to spark some great ideas for other MRC unit leaders. And this presentation will be shared, and Chrissy's information is available. And I'm sure, if we'll share this presentation on the website as well once everything is recorded and saved. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out if for some reason the recording doesn't load properly. Again, if you need the attendance for proof of attendance, please reach out. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all. Hey Bethany, are you
Yeah.
still?
Yep,
Are you still on the
I'm still
call?
here. Yep, I'm still
Yes.
here.
Hi, I had a quick question.